Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Akash Weekly Twitter Spaces. I'm Nadia Bajuelo, Community Events Manager here at Overclock Labs. I hope everyone here now or listening later or watching from our YouTube channel is having a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you guys are joining from. Let's jump into today's spaces. Greg is going to be kicking us off with updates, including Akash ecosystem news and his thoughts on the repatriation of data centers as a trend and what that means for Akash. After updates, we'll give you guys a full introduction to our guests. Jonmichael Hands, VP of Storage at Chia Network, Andrew Mellow, Head of Mining here at Overclock Labs, and new Akash Insider Joao Luna. During our guest segment, we'll be asking Jonmichael and Andrew about the latest Akash and Chia partnership. We'll also talk to Joao, who will tell us about his work on the Akash Terraform provider, as well as his experience with Akash and future plans. We'll then wrap up with an AMA with Greg. We'll meet Jonmichael, Andrew, and Joao after updates. Right now, let's hand it off to the man of the hour and CEO of Overclock Labs, Greg Osuri. Take it away, Greg.
It's been quite a week. A lot of ecosystem updates for Akash. It's been phenomenal. I mean, there are more updates coming from the Akash ecosystem than so. This week, to begin with, friends at Chia Project are here to share the exciting news that they've selected Akash Network as a launch partner for Bladebit. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Bladebit, it's a high performance a mining protocol for Chia, which relies on memory-based mining mechanism, and them selecting Akash as a launch partner is a great testament to us going. And Jonmichael Hans from Chia he's no stranger to our spaces. He's here to share his experiences and his thoughts. Um, and moving on to Spherion, which we talked about briefly in our previous calls, but they've really come along with the integration with Akash. I mean, they've showed a 3-click deploy demo on for Akash applications that you can pay using pretty much, quite a bit of tokens out there. Now they're engaged in the Polygon ecosystem and them demonstrating a super easy to use Akash deployment workflow that's highly optimized for developer experience that can be paid using Arbitrum or Polygon or any of the Ethereum ecosystem tokens is a huge feat. This is an amazing integration. I'm really excited. And they also showed a demo. Please go check it out. It's really nice. For those of you that haven't used Spherion, I highly recommend go checking them out because they can do a Netlify style deployment. That means directly from your GitHub repo without having a Docker file, you can deploy direct on a Web3 infrastructure. And them using Akash is amazing. It's really cool to see. And they also have other cool integrations where you can integrate with storage providers and whatnot. So please go check it out. And this also like solidifies this trend of the Akash protocol clients, I call it, right? So as you know, Akash, Overclock Labs, which build Akash Network, hasn't built a UI, right? A web UI or a graphical UI of any sorts. We instead relied on a community to build so, and we optimized heavily for developer experience because we believe good developers will always find projects that they find value in and enhance those projects. And that exactly worked out the way we anticipated. Now we have different protocol clients. First one was Cloudmos, formerly called Akash Linux. Became the de facto deploy tool for Akash Network. And then we have Praetor app, which built an amazing protocol client for Akash providers. So enabling Akash providers to rapidly, become a provider on Akash, configure, add security, add other amazing tools that'll help them be better providers. And we haven't spec'd that out. It's Praetor that they decided to do it, and then they've done it. Now we have Spherion, which is another additional protocol client. It takes a different approach on how apps should be deployed than Cloudmos. I mean, and definitely it's and it does multi-chain or multi-coin settlement, which Cloudmos doesn't offer. And now they join our fleet as the protocol clients, and soon we have other amazing interest from other protocols, other applications as well, such as Fleek and whatnot. So slowly, Akash is becoming this amazing ecosystem of protocol clients, all developing to make Akash successful. And this is exactly how we anticipated. And this also puts us in a very interesting position when it comes to censorship resistance, right? As you know, these days, the censorable part of the decentralized stack is not the actual protocol, but the front end itself, right? So Akash Network not having a front end, or Overclock Labs, which develops Akash Network, not developing a front end, or a default front end, is puts us in a very interesting position because now, our compliance requirements are much lower than most other protocols. So because we really have no control over a user, so it's Akash Network is very decentralized. It's credibly neutral. The protocol itself, it doesn't make choose favorites, or doesn't really enforce censorship, right? So I mean that doesn't mean the users of the Akash network can break the law or anything. I mean, if you're using Akash, you cannot, of course you have to comply with OFAC sanctions, and you have to comply with the law of the land wherever you're using a network, right? So, but the fact that Overclock Labs team doesn't develop a front end and doesn't operate a website that offers Akash as a user facing product, puts us in a much better position than, let's say, a Pocket network, where they recently announced that they have to you know, ban Tornado Cash because they are a company essentially that is operating a front end, right? So, and they have to comply with U.S. law, and and what they've done also is I don't really approve of calling putting a ban that looks like it's a protocol ban, but it's really a front end ban because the name of the company was the name of the network. It's very, very confusing. So I'm kind of proud of our decision of not developing a front end in the first place. And our amazing platform client, Cloudmos, also announced a new Explorer. This is the fourth Explorer for Akash Network. I mean, you essentially have a Nika or Pink Pub, and now we have Cloudmos. I think this Explorer is more focused on the develop and on the deployment side of things. So you can actually query now, using DSEC, right? DSEC is the deployment sequence, which is very, very cool. And go check it out. It's really cool. I started using, and they also introduced a new what do you call a price comparison tool, which is amazing because before they had a very basic table where you compare different prices. Now you can actually input your requirements, and it'll give you an estimate as to how much it's going to cost on Akash, as well as it'll give you a comparison as to how much it would cost not on Akash. So it's really helpful for those of you that are trying to decide whether Akash is right for you or not. Go check it out. It's a really well done price comparison tool, and we saw quite a lot of Powered by Akash news. So our favorite community member, Dimkos, turns out has been running a VPN server on Akash for a while, for 54 cents a month. And him and his friends use this VPN server. That's literally, cheaper than any VPN service that I can think of. Even ExpressVPN, the cheapest VPN service that I know, charges me $4 a month. That too for a shared infrastructure that I have no idea who has access to, right? Now, we're seeing this VPN service on a card, 54 cents a month, that you have full control over, that you have full sovereignty over, that you have, that for sure it's private because you have, I mean, you deployed it running on Akash, and that gives me all kinds of new ideas, right? Like what kind of services are possible in the future on Akash where you can guarantee sovereignty for the users, right? I mean, I'm really excited to see, and at this price point, you can have redundancy, you can have a whole lot of new features that traditional web services couldn't have. So it's very important to see stories like this come out because that really demonstrates the power of Akash, the sovereign nature of the cloud computing that extends privacy, that extends very critical values that we all seek for in this new world that we are developing. We saw other important ecosystem players join, ecosystem partners join us. A popular one is Cosmos Directory. Highly recommend you go check out Cosmos Directory if you're trying to find an RPC server or an API server for any of the Cosmos SDK based chains. It's a very amazing curated list of Cosmos RPC servers that more often than not, every project you go to, you need to get the RPC server. It's very hard to find those servers, right? So you go to NetRepo or whatnot. Usually, if you're looking for Akash RPC server, each project has their own schema or own way for discoverability. That brings to another interesting problem with Web3 or crypto in general, which is discoverability, right? Like we use GitHub a lot for discoverability, and we found out GitHub is probably the worst thing to use for discoverability, right? Because they can censor you. They've done that recently. Um, Recently, we found out that Tornado Cash developers, were using GitHub for Tornado Cash, and of course, Tornado Cash being censored means GitHub cannot host the source code, which is them taking down is compliant, and that's they really have no choice. But what they did further is they overreacted and banned the accounts of the developers. Now, U.S. government never sanctioned the developers. It was the protocol that was being sanctioned, but GitHub overextending the ban to developers and overreacting is just ridiculous, right? Like, I have no idea what decision led to banning these developers, but the outcome is that the work of these developers is forever lost because I have hundreds of repos on my GitHub and I don't always, download them or make a backup of them in my local drive because I keep changing my computers and I every time I change my computer I start off fresh, right? So if I have any historic code that I sometimes refer to is now forever gone, right? So my GitHub has been around for God knows, I think 13 to 14 years for and I have history of information that I stored, my issues that I've had discussions over, my wikis I've written all throughout my career, half my career as a programmer. So all that is lost, right? And that is not, I mean, this is just a classic example of a centralized authority, a centralized system over reacting to what they think is the interpretation of the law, and the developers, the people that trusted the systems are the ones uh, being victimized here. So GitHub is no longer a service discovery tool for Web3, and we need to do better. Cosmos Directory is doing an amazing job at service discovery, and I think they're still using GitHub, but I think moving away from GitHub to a more decentralized system like a Radical or a Gitopia, which is very, very interesting, I think is the future. And now we're also working to make these protocols, Radical and Gitopia, more usable. They're in early stages of development. I've talked to folks from both the teams, and both teams have different approaches on how to solve this problem. Radical obviously is Ethereum based, so the experience is very Ethereum oriented, whereas Gitopia is more Cosmos based. And with IBC, I think there will be soon enabling Akash native runner. So, like you have GitHub Actions that run on GitHub. Now you'll be able to run Gitopia actions on Akash. I'm really looking forward to this integration. That's going to open up a whole new world of CI/CD applications on decentralized web, and move away from our dependence of from GitHub to a decentralized stack. I'm really looking forward to that. And go check out. We added a few more projects to our ecosystem page. Go to ecosystem.akash network. You'll see a whole lot of projects, exciting stuff. We also added why they use Akash network. Soon we'll be adding videos and guides and whatnot to these individual projects. In other news, I was very, I was, we we had the first time developers, not the first time, but first time a crypto or a Web3 developer arrested for writing code, right? So the Tornado Cash developer, his name is Alexis. He was arrested by Dutch authorities, and I believe he was not yet charged and under suspicion. So there were no solid charges. They arrested him because he was suspected of money laundering and he was suspected of profiting off money laundering, which is very hard to believe because, as far as I know, Tornado Cash does not have fees for liquidity, provisioning. So them profiting off the activities of North Koreans is questionable by the Dutch authorities. Now, U.S. hasn't said that. It's Dutch that they're saying. US banned the protocol and never really sanctioned the actual developers. We don't know if that's going to happen or not, but so far, US has not sanctioned the developers. Uh, and Dutch simply went after the owner of Tornado Cash domain, Alexis, and says charged him with suspicion. Now, I don't know how long they can hold him without charging him. I believe somewhere around 3 days. Not fully updated on the situation, but this is a new precedence, right? I mean, a developer was arrested for writing code and charged and being held without bail and not being charged. So it's a very crazy world we're entering now, and I think it's very, very important for us to take this issue very seriously because all of us here writing software is vulnerable, right? If that's the case, and Coin Center is fighting it. I don't know if there are any other organizations that are fighting in Dutch. I'm not too familiar with Dutch law or EU law, but I'm pretty sure there is protections against human rights and free speech, protections for human rights and free speech. But it's really bad what's happening. I was not very happy about the situation. And I mean, really, if you think about it, right? Like arresting a developer because his code was used for money laundering is like arresting Edison because his bulb was used by the Nazis, right? It's the same analogy, right? And that's not okay. Yeah, and let's really hope there are other charges and or whatever suspicions they have, if they can actually be charged with, that justifies the arrest. If not, it's a gross violation of free speech. So this my tweet was quoted in several podcasts and whatnot, and I think it's important for us to be fighting this fight. So with that, that wraps up the Akash updates for this week, and I'll let's move on to introducing our guests and taking this podcast this spaces to the next phase.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So, Akash is the world's first decentralized web platform to support plot creation on its network. We're super excited to announce that we are the exclusive launch partner for Chia's Bladebit 2.0. We have two guests joining us today to tell us more about Chia Network, Bladebit 2.0, and how Akash and Chia are teaming up. First, we have Andrew Mellow, head of mining at Overclock Labs. He's a powerhouse in crypto mining, and Andrew's main focus at Akash is to ensure miners are welcomed and supported while creating new integrations for mining communities to use the Akash network. Andrew has been in crypto mining since 2013. He built one of the largest mining pools in Docker with over 1,000 mineable coins and started his first business when he was just 13, providing computer consulting for local businesses. Andrew earned a degree in International Business Administration and a double minor in Computer Science and Global Communications at the American University of Paris. Welcome, Andrew. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for the intro, Nadia.
All right. Also here with us is Jonmichael Hands. Jonmichael is the VP of Storage at Chia, where he works with the storage industry on proof of space and time. He was previously at Intel as a product manager for data center NVMe SSDs. He currently is working with the Open Compute Project on open sustainability, circularity, and energy efficiency for storage, as well as leading a new nonprofit called the Circular Drive Initiative to reduce e-waste in storage. Welcome, Jonmichael. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Nadia.
All right. So, Jonmichael, to kick off this conversation, can you first tell us a bit about Chia Network?
Yeah, it's good. It seems like we have a lot of folks from Akash on here that may not be familiar with Chia. So Chia is a decentralized blockchain based on storage. We call it proof of space and time, but really it's a brand new consensus. There really only is three consensus mechanisms that are viable for cryptocurrency today: proof of work, proof of stake, and proof of space and time. And we chose storage as kind of the medium for blockchain security because it's underutilized and pretty massively globally, and it's a commodity, but you can do it at low energy. So we have this whole idea of plotting and farming, which we'll get into. But the whole idea of Chia Network was you can have the decentralization of Bitcoin at a fraction of the energy use. Our founder Bram Cohen is most famous for inventing BitTorrent, but Chia will be much bigger than BitTorrent someday.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. So to follow up, can you explain what Chia plotting is and maybe touch a little bit on farming?
Yeah. So the one of these ideas, right? So if you have proof of work, you just sit there and do hashes, and every, like Bitcoin, the block time's 10 minutes, and every 10 minutes you have to start over. Well, in proof of space, you do that work up front once, and then you write it to disk. And so the hard part about plotting is if you just do the basic proof of space, which I just described, which is just do a bunch of hashes and write them to disk, those are subject to this thing called Hellman time-space trade-offs, which you can just put more compute in up front and have like better proofs. So the way that Chia plotting tables are architected is basically to eliminate those types of attacks by making them exponentially harder the farther you go. And so this process, you have to write out a bunch of random data. You basically sort it and compress it down to these, what we call plot files. These plot files actually are really big, right? They're 108 gigabyte files, and then they just live on your hard drive. So the interesting part about Chia is you have this like compute intensive thing up front, which is plotting, but you only have to do it once. And then once you do that, you just copy the file over to a hard drive, and it just sits there idle forever. You can farm it for 5 to 7 years. And farming is this very lightweight process that doesn't consume very much electricity. The drive just sits there 99% idle. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can have CapEx to secure the network. You actually have a physical asset, which in our case is hard drives, that is actually using for blockchain security. We actually use that for the consensus mechanism. And it's secure because you've done all the work up front in this plotting phase. And so today, this has been kind of the hardest part about Chia is that everybody has a hard drive or a spare hard drive laying around, but the plotting basically you basically need to have like a decent little desktop if you want to do it, kind of anywhere fast, and then you have to have a high endurance NVMe SSD. So those aren't super common in like gaming type systems. So we developed some new software called Bladebit Disk to make the plotting a little bit easier. But as we will learn about today, it actually scales extremely well in virtualized and Kubernetes environments on Akash, as we've seen Andrew do some testing over the last couple of weeks.
So for the last 8 to 9 months, Akash has supported plotting through software, Mad Max and Bladebit so far. And now Chia is releasing a new Bladebit called Bladebit Disk, which you just mentioned. Can you tell us where Bladebit Disk slots in about among those, and what's exciting about Bladebit 2.0?
Yeah, so I mentioned these are really big files, like 108 gigabyte file. And for the temporary storage space, you need hundreds of gigabytes of temporary storage space. So you can do this all in RAM today. And that's what we have called Bladebit. You need 416 gigabytes of DRAM. Like, this is not a friendly workload. It's super high performance. And so what we did was we had some plotters that had these insanely high-end servers that had 512 gigabytes of DRAM, put those servers up to the Akash network and enable Bladebit as a service. So what we did with Bladebit Disk is say, how can we take that same pipeline high-performance computing architecture and kind of port it to disk-based storage? So I mentioned the Chia plotting is a lot of sorting and algorithmic compression. So what you have to do is basically move data from memory to disk really fast, sort it, and then move it back. And so you have a lot of disk writes and a lot of memory bandwidth. So, but in Bladebit Disk, we basically removed the requirements for that high amount of DRAM. So now you can start on like really low embedded systems at like 2 to 4 gigabytes of DRAM, but it also scales all the way up to, if you have 100 gigs of DRAM, you can cache a decent, like almost 80% of the writes. And so that's kind of what we've enabled for the Akash platform, is this kind of happy mix where honestly the plotting for in memory was too fast for Akash because most people didn't have the internet bandwidth to kind of keep up with that. So this Bladebit disk is kind of like the middle of the road. You need, I think our default configuration is 16 virtual cores, 125 gigabytes of DRAM, and this will produce a 20-minute plot. So this is kind of a happy medium, because 20-minute plot is actually kind of the sweet spot, magical point for how long it takes to download a 100 gigabyte file on gigabit Ethernet. So a lot of people have like AT&T Fiber, or Google Fiber, broadband, or whatever that has gigabit download speeds. So now they can download a plot in 20 minutes. And if the Akash network creates the plot in exactly 20 minutes, that's a perfect balance of compute, DRAM, storage, and networking. And that's very rare in this space.
Thanks for walking us through that, JM. So switching over to Andrew for a second here. Andrew, how did you add support for Bladebit disk to Akash?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for that background, JM. And yeah, so I wanted to share the story a bit of how this came to be on the Akash network and live. Bladebit disk was released last Wednesday, and within about 8 hours, we had created the Docker file for that and published that to our awesome Akash repo in the format of an STL. And once that pull request on awesome Akash was accepted onto the master branch, the application became immediately available in Akashlytics, which is now known as Cloudmos. So again, wanted to just highlight how easy it is to really run any application on Akash by creating the Docker file and making sure it's a fully Dockerized application, and then going through the process of creating a pull request on our awesome Akash repository on GitHub will make that available on our network. So again, a very rapid development and iterative process to make this viable on the network. It's about 8 hours turnaround time from when it was released to having it available for everyone.
So, Andrew, what does Bladebit 2.0 mean for providers?
Yeah, so we're really excited to get Bladebit 2.0 on the network and supported because it is a very profitable workload for our providers. In terms of the hardware requirements and upfront costs, again, this workload is going to basically generate anywhere between $200 and $350 per month per workload. And that would be at a 15-cent per plot cost on what we call modern hardware. So that would be, let's say, anything, CPUs, memory, and hard drives produced in the last 3 years are going to be able to support that kind of pricing. So we're looking for providers to make sure they know that they can simply upgrade their hardware now to support this new workload and become compatible with it. So to do that, we want them to know that 24 CPUs, 128 gigabytes of memory, and at least 1 terabyte of ephemeral storage, ideally NVMe or RAID SSDs would be ideal. And again, if any providers out there listening want to upgrade to support this workload, they can reach out to us and get in touch if they have any questions as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. I also see we have some questions. We'll be bringing you up during while we talk to our next guest, and we'll have you ask your question during the AMA.
Thank you.
So, everyone, the fastest way to run Bladebit disk right now is to deploy on Akash. First, launch Cloudmos, formerly Akashlytics, go to Templates, then Mining, and Chia Bladebit disk. Jonmichael, for more support from the Chia side, where can someone go?
Yeah, if you guys want to learn more about what we're doing, chia.net is everything, and then we have a link to our Keybase. Keybase is a little app owned by Zoom. It's kind of like Slack, but we do all the Chia stuff on Keybase. We have a public channel for Chia, so yeah, come on in.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, thanks, Jonmichael and Andrew. Guys, stick around for questions after our next guest. So Andrew was just talking about upgrading your provider to support Bladebit disk. If you want to run a provider right now, our next guest is here to share more about using Terraform to create Akash providers. Joining us today is new Akash Insider Joao Luna. Joao is a cloud engineer based in Portugal, and he's also the developer behind the Akash Terraform provider. When he's not busy building, he tells us that his hobbies include reading, technology, board games, and spending time with friends. Speaking of friends, I hear friends call you Luna. If that's the case, can the Akash community call you Luna? With that, welcome, Joao. How are you today? And should we call you Luna?
Hello, everyone. Yes, thanks for having me. Yeah, Luna is what usually everyone calls me, so feel free. It's also easier to pronounce than Joao.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So, Luna, we'd love to hear about the incredible work that you're doing to increase Akash compatibility with Web2 Cloud. As a developer behind the Akash Terraform provider, you've streamlined Akash and Terraform integration. What inspired you to set up Terraform integration?
So I was using the CLI to set up some miners and workloads I had, but soon it became quite hard to manage the amount of deployments I was using because I'm someone that likes to use the CLI. And I also was using Terraform for my traditional cloud infrastructure, so it just felt natural to start working on a Terraform provider for the Akash network. So then I could have all my deployments managed as code and also store it in version control. I would have my infrastructure there and could read it in a human readable format that is HCL developed by Terraform. By HashiCorp. And as I started to work on it, I realized this could be also useful for the community, and it could open out doors to start some migrations from the traditional cloud. Another great advantage is how with this provider you can seamlessly integrate Web3 cloud with the traditional cloud infrastructure that you already have.
Awesome, thanks. So, Luna, can you give us a few examples of who would or who could use the Terraform provider and how each of these people would use it?
So two big groups that come to mind for me are developers and also operations teams. So, for instance, as a developer, I could have my Terraform configurations to set up my personal website for some other workload that I need to, and keep it versioned in my version control tools. If I want to update the version of my website, I can just update the configuration and run a simple Terraform apply, and I can be sure that the deployment will be updated and the manifest sent to the provider. As an operations team, I could use the Terraform provider to move my build agents, for instance, my build agents for CI/CD pipelines, and move them to Akash without much effort. I think people in DeFi could also use Akash, so they are already running their infrastructure on Akash node, the Terraform provider. So they are already running it on Akash. It's only a matter of configuring it on Terraform or writing the Terraform configuration. They can version it, store it, and they can have their workloads on Terraform scripts as well. So basically, anyone that deploys on Akash can benefit from having their infrastructure as code and using the Terraform provider.
Amazing, Luna. Thank you for breaking that all down for us. That's awesome. So from here, what are your plans to scale up?
So the Akash, firstly, the Akash Terraform provider is open source, so it is open for all the contributions, feedback, feature requests. It's really it's a tool for me, and it's also a tool for everyone. So if you have something that you like to see, or some improvements that you would like to see, feel free to go to the GitHub issues and open an issue, or you can find also the Discord channel on the Akash development Discord. So I'll also soon roll out a couple of improvements and a new feature, which I call the providers filters, which basically will allow the users to specify a few attributes that they want on their providers. And yeah, the Terraform provider will go through the bid list and see which providers match the specified criteria. And this is really useful. So, for example, I can specify that I want my website deployed in 2 providers, one in Europe, another one in North America, and it will make sure the deployment is there, is deployed in a provider that's in one of those regions. In parallel, I'm also developing a repository that's full of modules to help scale the usage of the Terraform provider. There is already a Hello World website for users to quickly test their environments that everything's working. I've also I think, a module with an Ubuntu machine with SSH and a PKT miner module. So these modules remove the need to write SDL files. So they allow you to simply write Terraform input variables on your configuration. And yeah, that's it. You'll have your workloads running. So this will allow people from traditional cloud to onboard into Akash without needing to write or learn SDL files right away. So they would use HCL, which they are already familiar with from their traditional cloud workloads. This is really cool. And lastly, I'm also working on testing an integration with another tool from the same family, let's say, called TerraGrant, which will take the Terraform provider to the next level and allow large-scale infrastructure basically by enabling the execution of several of these modules at the same time. And by specifying also a specific folder structure for those configurations that make the infrastructure of the users to be maintainable and scalable and really, really organized. I think that's really cool.
Wow. I mean, looking at this Terraform module and looking at the roadmap that you have really makes me want to start getting in there and start coding. For context, I love Terraform. I've been a contributor to Terraform since 2014. I worked on Terraform, early version of Terraform, where pretty much it was only Michelle Hashimoto, who created Terraform, was on it. I learned Golang because of Terraform. I was going and fixing bugs on Terraform because I love the tool so much, and I love HCL. I always thought it was amazing, schema, and amazing developer experience when it comes to like deploying Terraform to configuring applications. Uh, you're kind of making SDL absolute with Terraform, which is amazing, right? Like, and the beauty of Terraform, most people don't realize is ability to coexist with other infrastructure. Like, one of the big use cases is you can now have part of your infrastructure. If you're a Web 2 company, if you're like Amazon or Google, so whatever you're on, you can use Akash side by side with these major, cloud providers, and you can share the environment between them. So, for example, you want to have your developer environment on Akash, but you may want to have your production on Amazon because you're still not comfortable with Akash running your production, and that's possible using Terraform. You can get into all kinds of amazing configuration that's repeatable, and that can be shared with other people with Terraform. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and really seeing an excited developer that built to solve this problem and now looking to expand to solve other problems is an amazing, amazing feat. And I would consider Terraform as Akash protocol client as well. And also, another interesting fact is our head of product, Anil, used to lead Terraform product at HashiCorp. So we have quite a lot of love from there, and I'm close friends with lots of Terraform employees. Terraform is one of the most respected Web2 infrastructure companies out there, right? They're like, I mean, the founder, Mish Hashimoto, is called the James Bond of open source software. Like the guy is like obviously very popular and a lot of people respect him. For those of you, I mean, HashiCorp is also the company that made Vagrant and Vault. If you're not familiar with those tools, highly recommend go checking them out. Most developers, I mean, that wrote code in 2015, 2014 are familiar with Vagrant, right? Vagrant was a pre-Docker version of running your dev images using basically using VMware or any of the hypervisors. So it's amazing to see Terraform integration, Akash. Um, Thank you so much, Luna. I was really excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's real cool, and something that I find funny about building with Terraform modules, and I think everyone should try to. It kind of feels like building Legos, but with all these cloud providers and resources, so you can mix them together and build cool things. And it's something that I really like about Terraform.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to doing a whole lot of like CI/CD stack. Like I think Akash is perfect for CI/CD, right? CI/CD builds are like huge, and it'd be great to have like some sort of Terraform mechanism to use. Not use GitHub, GitHub Actions, and use something like I forgot what the latest CI/CD stuff, but yeah, move our dependency away from GitHub Actions as much as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. With that, let's go ahead and open it up to questions. We had one question here for sure. Yep, go for it.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My question is about Hash Network. Like, what problem does Hash Network came to solve in time of scalability and stability? You know,
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What's the problem? What's the problem Hash Network came to solve in time of scalability and stability?
What?
Yeah. What problem is Akash solving? And I think he's got some questions around Akash in the future around scalability and
Yeah. So Akash Network is the first viable open cloud. So cloud computing today, the infrastructure side of thing, is essentially controlled by few closed companies: Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, and Google being the majority stakeholders, right? Majority market, the whole majority of the market. So if you believe cloud is the fabric of human society, all our data, yours, mine, everyone's data is stored on the cloud, and we have no idea who can, how that's handled, and we have no idea how the pricing is done. We have no idea. We have no guarantees that our data is safe. So Akash is the first viable attempt to decentralizing this oligopolized closed system called the cloud computing. Yeah, and the outcome is an amazing non-custodial system where you have complete control of your deployments. That's 97% cheaper than the cloud. And the way we do that is by enabling anybody with compute, be it mostly data center compute, to offer their unused capacity on the Akash network in an open way where developers or the tenants can consume the compute in a reverse auction, right? So the problem we're solving is improving efficiency of global computation, because our thesis is there's enormous amount of unused compute out there. Conservatively, over 85% of the world's compute is not used, and that also brings another interesting point that I haven't touched recently. As there's a tweet from A16Z Andreessen Horowitz partner Martin Casero about the repatriation of the data center, right? So a lot of folks are actually building their own data centers because they deem cloud to be extremely expensive. There's one case where he talks about a company saving up to 40%, 40x, sorry, of the cloud bill by building a GPU kit in-house, right? It still doesn't solve the underutilized problem. If that company is not using their hardware 100% of the time, they're still losing money. So Akash, really thesis is like if you have a hardware lying around in a data center that you're not using, put that on the network, let people that see use for their hardware use it, and pay you what you agreed upon, right? So the idea is what we're going after is to improve the efficiency of global computation usage, and thereby also improving energy efficiency, because a lot of times when you have servers that are sitting out there that's turned on, the carbon emissions is not just the servers, but the cooling systems and the whole ecosystem around keeping those lights on. And instead of trying to be expansionary to get more power, we're looking to be more reusable, right? So we're looking inwards to open up what we have already deployed and make that more usable. Hopefully, does it answer your question?
Sure, you will answer my question well. Thank you.
Welcome. And we saw some questions on the internet pop out, right, Nadia?
Yeah, we have Chain of Secrets here who just requested to speak with a question. Go ahead, Chain of Secrets, and I'll check on the internet.
Hi, yeah, I'm just curious what your approach is going to be to onboard more people into the cloud environment to use Akash.
Sorry, repeat the question again.
Yes, what my question is, how are you going to create more awareness and onboard more users into the Akash model?
How are we going to acquire more
Yes,
users, right?
correct.
Correct. So good question. So first is building improving the product to a point where we have an amazing retention, right? So I think a big problem with Akash today is it's hard to use, right? Command line interface that you have, various different protocol clients that are getting way better, right? So our job is to work with these protocol clients to ensure that there's amazing retention. And second step is to increase our market penetration. And the way we do that is we have a planned approach, a phased approach. First, we decided to attract our own ecosystem, which is Cosmos. And the goal is to get maximum market penetration possible, all the way from RPC servers to node providers to websites in general hosted on Akash and hosted in the Cosmos ecosystem, and that's going really well, right? So we're adding features that enable node providers, for example, using persistent storage, IP address, leasing and whatnot. And the next step is to go to the broader Web3 community and the proof of work community. We're already seeing leaders like Chia and Web3, other viable proof of work protocols talking about Akash, adopting Akash, right? So we're slowly getting into this phase 2 as well while we're executing our phase 1. Phase 3 is to provide features that are unheard of in Web 2, like high performance computing. With GPUs, we'll be able to attract machine learning and really high performance computing 20 to 30% cheaper than the cloud. And that's a big deal, right? Because high performance computing is extremely expensive currently on Amazon's and Google's, right? So our really strategy is to offer, every time we target a certain user base, offer them a unique value proposition that they cannot get elsewhere, right? So that's phase 3. And phase 4 is to really offer low latency, heavily distributed competition. And in order for that to happen, we need to have thousands of nodes spread across the world. Right now, we have about 50 providers spread across the world. So by the time we reach to phase 4, we will essentially offer a product that's unlike any other product in Web 2 or Web 3, right? So instead of tackling phase 4 directly, we wanted to do it in a staged manner, because a lot of times Akash adoption, the challenge is really around behavioral change, right? So Akash is a non-custodial system. There is no credit cards. There's no email addresses. There are no login passwords. So for a user to use Akash, they need to change their behavior dramatically. So it made sense for us to target our immediate ecosystem, which is the Cosmos ecosystem, because that's where really you don't need to retrain the user a lot, right? And easy to get Akash tokens if you're a Cosmos user. You can go to Osmosis, you can go to Access. It's even harder for a Web2 user, Web3 user to get Akash tokens today and without a KYC, right? So we're solving these problems in a phased manner, and we're doing enormous progress and sharing our progress along the way. And that's how we're going to get to the world.
And then, Greg, we had two other questions come in from Twitter. You've touched on some of this already, but in case you have any additional thoughts and just so that they know that we have gotten their questions, we've got, hi guys, what is the status or progress of GPUs and managed services? Also, Greg mentioned in Twitter Spaces a couple months back that he wants to onboard lots of providers for managed services. How long is that process going to last? Genuinely asking as a non-IT guy. Cheers. And we also have, how can we compare Akash with other cloud computing networks, or how do we compare? And like I said, you've kind of touched a little bit on that, but.
Sure. We're a little far off from managed services, right? Like, so we're not quite there ready for managed services yet. We need to even have, first stop is to like solve retention problem, right? So there's enormous drop off from Akash users. A lot of that is just basic like lack of notifications, right? So for example, like I deploy something on Akash today, and that workload, you had to prepay for the workload, and the workload runs out of money, right? I don't get a notification, and I'm busy doing my own thing, right? I'm thinking that this website is going to run forever. In a Web2 world, I'm expecting my credit card to be charged, but in a Web3 world, there's no credit card charges, right? So there are a lot of inherent problems that we got to fix, and we can't have a leaky bucket before we go ahead and build other features, right? Or else you're just going to end up in a feature creep where we have all these, mediocrely functioning features that nobody really uses because it has a leaky bucket. So before we go ahead and build additional features, we got to build a better product. And that's our number one goal right now. So we're doing several methods. So in order for us to, have a highly retained user base, we got to do, subscription-based payments, ideally have infrastructure to connect to the legacy payments rails, which is credit cards and whatnot. So we've introduced a lot of features like authorized spend that allows us to decouple payments from operations. We're doing a web UI, a managed service as well. The first managed service will be a custodial actually UI that can handle credit card payments at a premium, right? So the approach we're doing for managed services is not directly built into the protocol first, but actually offer additional custodial features on top of the platform, and to see and to gauge the value or the product market fit for these features, right? So we're taking a market first approach here with managed services. With GPUs, we made quite a lot of progress actually. We've been working on this for a long time. It's a very difficult thing to enable. The challenge really is um, in two folds, right? The big one is the lack of GPU support from Kubernetes, right? So Kubernetes by default doesn't support GPUs, and we have to build in the support quite a lot. And the problem with GPUs is every GPU vendor expects your application to be customized to their GPUs, right? So that means your container has to be packaged to support just one GPU. That is inherently, uh, in contradiction with the core principles of Kubernetes, where you build once and you can run that image anywhere, right? So there are solutions around using labeling annotations, using quite a lot of like advanced features that are half built and still underway from the Kubernetes side of things to enable to support GPUs. So unless those problems are solved, and this is problems just beyond Akash, right? This is all the users of Kubernetes, but we are actively engaged with them. We're actively working to solve a lot of the problems. There was a demo, a prototype that kind of had functionality. I wanted to share that, but my team was not very happy about me sharing the prototype because that it's not fully production ready for us to share the prototype, but it demonstrated that we can run a GPU workload, right? So a lot of these nuances are not a lot of these issues are being fixed right now, and I can't really give you a realistic timeline when this is going to come out because the whatever timeline I give you is going to be dependent on upstream Kubernetes, right, to fix their stuff. But we're making a lot of progress. We'll probably give you a document, a more detailed update of extension of what I just spoke today. But that's where we are. So before that, before GPUs, I think we're going to have our web UI. Like I said, it's a web UI that's solving critical problems around retention and acquisition. And we have IP leases that's going to enable quite a lot of other use cases like Solana and whatnot to deploy on Akash. So we have quite a lot of features coming out before the GPUs. But GPUs are going to be a paradigm shift along with managed services that's going to take Akash to the next level, right? And we're also seeing quite a lot. Like today we saw, our Terraform integration kind of giving us hints into how a managed service will look like. We have a lot of these protocol clients, right? Each of them, like Spherion itself, is charging a premium for Akash users. That's considered a managed services. So we have managed services that are actually taking are being seeded and actually shaping form, right? I would imagine Praetor in the future would start charging some premium to use their service, and that's a managed service, right? So it's a Akash native development, a market first and market driven development that we are seeing, which is the most exciting part. So by the time we have managed services, it's going to be very, very well vetted by the market and very market.
We're just about out of time, but Anons has been waiting very patiently. So Anons, go ahead with your question, and then we'll wrap up and thank our guests and all that good stuff.
Thank you for having me up here. I know some cloud service providers that I think would be interested in using Akash. Is there like a point of contact that I could put them in touch with?
Yeah, absolutely. You can put them in touch with me or Boz Menzalji, our COO. He's available on Twitter as well. But if you can't find him, please connect with me.
Okay, I might follow up with you after this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for thinking of us.
Awesome. Well, with that, thanks so much to Greg, Jonmichael, Joao Luna, and Andrew for joining us on Spaces today. And thank you to all of you guys for joining today or listening to this later. And before we get together next time, Jonmichael, where can everyone go to learn more about Chia Network?
Chia.net. And we had some big announcements today, as if you're following Chia on Twitter, for carbon credits on the Chia blockchain being tokenized. So check it out. There's lots of interesting real world use cases happening on Chia.
Awesome. Guys, make sure you give JM a follow, give Chia Network a follow, and check out the latest over on their Twitter. Luna, where can everyone go to learn more about the amazing work that you're doing?
So there's a channel called Terraform Provider on the Akash Discords. I've posted and pinned a thread there, so you feel free to check it out. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting documents and document augmentation, blog posts that I do. So I think those are the two best places to look.
Awesome, guys. Go give them a follow and check it out. Get on Discord. Also, go run Bladebit Disc. Thank you so much for joining today's event. Thanks again to Greg, Jonmichael, Andrew, and Luna for spending time with us today. See you guys.